give that away, but you know how Jack Reacher is. He does the right thing no matter what it costs. So yeah, it's my favorite episode in my whole life. My whole career was that episode.
Okay.
So,
Roberto, the journey to Reacher, we'll go back to the very beginning for you. How did this opportunity arrive at your doorstep? And dare I say, were you aware of the show? Had you seen season one, season two? And was it a pleasant surprise? And dare I say, did you did someone reach out for you this role? Did you audition, self-tape? And how did you come about becoming Villanova in Reacher?
well, my agent who just recently retired, Nicholas Ray, he submitted me and I was invited for a self-tape. So I did the tape. And then I was invited for by Mindy Marin, the casting director, for a callback, and there was a 4-day window. So I said, well, I should watch an episode of Preacher. And I watched the first episode of season one, and my mind was blown. And the reaction that I did not expect is I'm a military veteran. I served in the Navy for 8 years. And for the first time in my life, by the end of episode two, I was proud to be a military veteran 365 days a year. Because usually it was Memorial Day or Veterans Day or the 4th of July. And then I'd forget. But I was so moved by Reacher that I watched the other 8 episodes. And at some point, I figured out which book it was because I noticed that season one was based on a book. So I assumed season three was based on a book. And the book was classified. But I used to be a software developer. I used to work on nuclear reactors. I figured out the book in 5 minutes, Persuader, and read it. So by the time we had the callback with the showrunner Nick Santora and Mindy Marin, I admitted to them that my self-tape was, I said it was garbage compared to after reading the book and after seeing the season. So it's going to be different. I don't know why, but what I spent in those 4 days remembering was um, when I was in the Navy, I used to work on nuclear reactors, and there was always a master chief, an E9, that was about to retire. So he was pulled out of the responsibility chain. And what they would do is they would visit everybody before leaving the Navy and just checking with them. How are they doing? Lifting their morale. And I had been checked by 6 Master Chiefs. So that's what I wanted to bring to Billy. Those Master Chiefs that really cared about their subordinates, especially if they're not in the chain of command. Because I was senior to Duffy, but it's her team. So I could not, cross her. Well, I've seen that, I don't know, 100 times on the USS Arkansas. Oh, the other thing is I used to wear this cap on set every day to remind me of the responsibility that a supervisor has for their subordinates, especially when he doesn't outrank them anymore. So it's a thing that was when I saw it in the script, I was like, this is Master Chief, blah, 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 and Master Chief, blah, blah, blah. And I combined those people into Billy. That's what I try to do. But I don't know if I've answered your question. But the thing that really hit me is I got to be on the show because it makes me proud to be a veteran. We have 20 million veterans. I want them to be proud because I was guilty of not being proud 365 days a year. I forgot about it. And then to be reminded for Veterans Day. But this show did something to my spirit that I wanted to return in terms of my dedication and commitment to the work. And it just made me proud to be a veteran. I don't know how else to say that.
Yeah.
And I know, oh, we had my ship had a reunion in Texas in Austin in May, and the show allowed me to fly down there because we were in Toronto shooting. And so there was about 100 friends that some of them I served with, some served before me, some served after me. The ship was 30 years old, but they were all proud of Reacher to be veterans. They all had the same thing, the same impact that I had. So I hope that that improved morale of the country, of our country, I believe, the show that it's valuable to me, but I think it's valuable to all of us. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff that I put into this character, that kind of drive.
And Roberto, did you do a chemistry read with Sonya Cassidy in terms of Sonya, who plays the role Susan Duffy, to see if you were Bonnie and Clyde? Because you have that sort of relationship, you sort of bounce off each other.
No, there was no table read. I did the callback, and next thing I knew, I was offered the role. Um, but Sonya Cassidy, she's a graduate of the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, the best acting school in Europe, and so it's all about rehearsal. It's all about chemistry. So we were constantly playing when we were off camera. And for the whole shoot, it was about over 13 months. We established that chemistry off camera so that when we came on camera, it was just another one of our 5,000 conversations that we had. And so she was really good at that. And I came from theater training, so we would always try to do that. We just did it without saying it. We just knew what we were doing, which was building the love that these guys have for each other and disguising it with the jokes and the comments she made about me and the comments I made about her. That's the fun of serving together, having fun.
Yeah. And Roberto, you're not a small man, and Villanova is not a small man by any shape of the means. But dare
Well,
I
I'm 30 pounds smaller now than when I was on the show.
Yeah, but dare I say, when you're standing to what I would say a skyscraper, putting it kindly in terms of Alan Richardson, how big of a guy is he? Intimidating to see him in terms of the flesh. He looks, as I dare I say, a daunting, imposing sort of figure on our TV screens. But when you're working, when you see him in action, when you see him doing all the stunts. Is he still very revering in terms of being real life up close?
Well, he's bigger in real life than he is on screen.
Okay.
Normally, I've never seen that before. He's bigger in real life than on screen, but his joy factor, his heart, it is like a zone of happiness around him that's contagious. Everybody's happy around him. And then he slips into reacher mode. So most of the times he's friendly. If you see any of his interviews, he's just friendly. He's happy. He questions his intelligence. He's like a scientist artist. He's like a scientist, like a Beethoven kind of artist actor, but he's pleasant. But then he switches into reacher mode, and then it's exactly what you said. It's intimidating. It's I'm not even acting. I'm intimidated by him in front of the camera when he gets into that zone. And then when we call cut, it's back to smiles. Let's do that again. Let's do that again. And when we worked like 12-hour days, I wish they were 14 hours. If we worked 14 hours, I wish it was 16 hours because it was just so enjoyable to be in the presence of such skill and such fun.
And I suppose Roberto in season two, they had royalty in terms of their protagonists, in terms of their arch villain, Robert Patrick. And to top Robert Patrick is a hard thing to do, but we always know in these seasons where you always have the good guys, what makes a healthy balance and what makes the success of a show is how good people interpret the bad guys in terms of how revering, how sort of daunting they are. And in terms of Brian T's role as Quinn, Anthony Michael Hall's role, as we get to see, he's more duped. But these are the two guys, these are the two lead antagonists for each throughout the season as well. And dare I say, this stand in merit to anything that has gone before them in season one and season two.
Well, I mean, what I love about Reachers from season one was so fantastic, and then it grew with the background of Alan's with Jack Reacher's family, the special investigators unit, and then it grows to this, and season four is going to grow, and that has to do with the showrunner Nick Santora. It's going to grow. Season four is going to be bigger than three. Three was bigger than two. Two was bigger than one, and it's just this growth that Alan and Sam Hill, the directors, and all the executive producer teams, and Nick Santora, they just grow it with the studios. The show just grows. The writing team. It was hard to explain, but it was like it felt like in the ship, collective minds rather than competitive minds. And the collaborating together and this team, I mean, the writing is just incredible. And then it gets changed, and then it gets changed. It gets changed. But every one of them was an improvement. I never would have asked for those 10, 12 improvements, but Nick Santora did, Scott Sullivan did, and everybody else did. I mean, the expertise on this crew was just so inspiring that it made me a better actor just because I was surrounded by experts in their fields. So I just try to catch up to them, really. I don't know if I should admit that, but I try to catch up to them.
No problem, no problem in the world. And Roberto, the penultimate question. If you to describe Villanova as a person having played him, what type of a guy is he? What type of a person does he strike to you? If he was sitting, if you saw him walking across the street, or if you engaged with him in a in a conversation, what type of a character would you judge him to be?
Well, as an actor, you want to bring as much as yourself and so that it's truthful. So in my imagination, I imagined that my family was from Colombia. And when I was in the Navy in the 80s working on nuclear reactors, Pablo Escobar made Colombia and all Colombians really mad at him, the way he just polluted the country, Colombia. So I imagine when I got out of the Navy after 8 years, what if I went to the DEA so that I could go down to Colombia where I had family so I could infiltrate Pablo Escobar? And that's the backstory that I created for Villanueva, is that he was a former nuclear reactor operator. So teamwork was everything. But there was, oh, the other thing in boot camp, I learned that I had given up my civil rights. I didn't know that. I was 19. So I made Villanueva in love with the Constitution, in love with civilian rights, and that's why I was a little bit upset with Reacher when he, this guy has a Fourth Amendment right to, or Sixth Amendment right to due process, to have a lawyer, but we have him chained up, and it was Reacher's idea, and I'm like, he's right, but then, you know what I mean? I just wanted to have that little conflict inside that I love the Constitution. I really do. Me personally, I do because I signed my rights away in boot camp and I didn't know I did. So that was, I don't know, I was playing myself and I don't know how to describe myself, but other than I love, when I was in the Navy, and at one point I was a supervisor for about 30 guys, they were all my little brothers. They were not my subordinates. They were not my employees. They were my little brothers because when I was in their position, I had big brothers making sure that I made it through. So that sense of family, I learned on the USS Arkansas on my favorite 4 years in my life was serving and protecting the United States on this ship. Our ship's specialty was to protect aircraft carriers. That was this ship's specialty. And it was also the Pacific Fleet's test platform for the Tomahawk missile. So we were shooting Tomahawk missiles, and we had all sorts of engineers on board following the missiles to make sure that they were behaving properly. So that sense of family is, I'm a veteran. Billy was a veteran. That's what I created. I
Roberto
don't know if I answered your
Montesinos.
question.
Yeah, no problem. Roberto Montesinos now for the final 30 seconds before we finish. You might enlighten all our audience, all our listeners, why they should tune in tomorrow, March the 27th, for Unfinished Business, Season 3 of Jack Reacher, Episode 8 from Villanova himself. Roberto, over to you for the final minute or so.
Well, I don't want to give too much away, but if you were following Reacher and Paulie, Dutch Giant, Olivia Richter, the 7'2" guy, they're gonna have a little conversation in episode 8. They're gonna sit down and talk a little bit. And oh my God. I mean, like if you've seen an interview by Olivia, he trained for 4 months with the stunt